Good morning. I'm calling the facilities meeting to order. That clock is approximately 4 minutes slow, so it's 9:01 as we speak. I'm going to start off, first of all, I need a motion motion by Mr. Garrity, second by Ms. Frazier. All in favor of adopting the last minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're going to start off with the airport agenda first today. So you should have a copy of the airport agenda in front of you. And I will now turn this over to Mr. Hajos for number 2 on the airport.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the agenda on page 2 is a request to establish Warren County as lead agency for the state environmental quality review. This is basically for us to do a short environmental assessment form and to show that we don't exceed the threshold for a type 1 action. This can be classified as a unlisted action, which would be the construction of the snow removal equipment buildings. So this is just to name us as lead agency.
Okay, do we need Mr. Sokol moves that. Do I have a second? Mr. Simpson? All in favor of, is this a resolution?
Yes.
So all in favor of this resolution?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And I'll turn it over to Don.
Okay.
The next 3 items are fiscal year 2020 grant applications. The first one is for our snow removal equipment building. That's the construction of that. The second one is for an airport pavement management plan grant. And the last one is for the design of a taxiway LED lighting upgrade project.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Simpson, do I have a second on that? Ms. Frazier, do I have any discussion on this? Mr. Loeb?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I have, I know for the snow removal building, the application is for up to $3-point-something million.
Yes.
That means it could be as low as $1.
It could.
But does that have any impact on the actual bid when you compare it to the building that's 60%, 40% smaller? We're doing for OES is only $450,000.
Yeah, so this is just our ability to apply for the grant, the pre-application. The final application for the grant will be the specific number of the dollar.
Okay.
So, we went purposely high just so we would, with coordination with the FAA, because they have to kind of pre-program some of this money ahead of time. So we didn't want to say it was going to be a $1 million building and have it come in at $2 million. So we made sure we had plenty of cushion there, so we don't have to come back to you or the FAA for additional dollars.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Hajos?
Supervisor Loeb, one other part of this is that these are federal grants, so we have to do inspection when we construct a building like this, so we're paying also, part of this grant is paying for the inspection for a consultant to be out there to do the inspection work.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Simpson?
Could we move 7, 9, and 11? Could I amend my motion?
Without objection. Good, do I have a second on moving 7, 9, 11? Second by Mr. Garrity. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Wild?
I was just curious about the match. Is it 5% local match on all these?
It is.
Okay, thanks.
95-5, correct?
It's 90, 5, and 5.
Yeah,
So
90 Fed, 5 state, 5 county. Okay, so calling the question for 7, 9, and 11. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next resolution is for a transfer of funds. This is to cover $86 worth of part-time salary cost for an employee at the Balloon Festival.
Mr. Simpson? Do I have a second on that? Mr. Wild? All in favor of approving the $86? Any discussion first? None? Okay, all.
Is
Yes,
there
Mr.
any,
Garrity.
do they have no discretionary authorization to move small amounts like that without coming to committee?
I don't believe the county has, but I will refer that to Mr. Moore.
It depends on which account classifications it's being moved from.
Salaries.
Well, it's a payroll
With,
one, so probably not.
yeah, because it's a salary account, it requires the approval of the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Pending, we're on, IV, number 4, referral and pending items. Committee authorized the RFP to pursue solar power site development at the airport and updating the airport layout plan for same.
So over the last few weeks, we had our consultant come to the airport to finalize the specific areas that we were gonna include in the non-aeronautical use request to the FAA. That's been accomplished, and this week we'll be submitting, an update to the ALP, a revised area map, and a request to change those small areas to non-aeronautical use. Once we get the go-ahead from them, we're prepared to put the RFP out.
Mr. McGraw, how many acres are we looking at again?
I don't have the specific number on that. It's approximately 100.
Approximately 100, okay. And I know this is very preliminary and way ahead of the game, and I know we don't want to throw numbers around, but just from your experience, do we have a general ballpark number of what we can expect in per acre?
I've been told, and I can't confirm this, but approximately $1,000 an acre annually.
Approximately $1,000 an acre, okay. And if we were lucky enough to have this come to fruition, the FAA says, okay, we actually have someone who wants to do it, and we maxed out 100 acres, all the ifs, that would equate to $100,000 a year.
That's an approximate number.
Yeah, and that's in the perfect world, but yes, I get that. But even if half of that came to fruition, $50,000 a year additional revenue for the county, to me, is very significant, especially since just 5 years ago, we were losing approximately $900,000 a year at the airport, and we're down under $500,000 now, and you're doing all the things necessary to decrease that loss every year, and I really appreciate your efforts on that, and Mr. Hajos, both of you. Yes, Ms. Bramer.
Thanks. I would like to request that we look into getting solar panels on that new storage building, on the snow removal building. Because as we build new infrastructure, we need to think about how we're going to power that stuff and create energy to make it run. Thanks.
Okay, any other, yeah, Mr. Wild.
Thank you. I just have a question. Are we maximizing all the unusable space, so to speak, with this?
Are we maximizing
So
all?
of the area that is not runway, taxiway, things
Mhm,
like that,
mhm.
are we just using 100% of that area that we could for solar? Or are there still some areas left over that we might do other things with?
Well, first of all, we're not cutting any trees, so any treed area on the airport is staying in place. We've identified the areas that, within the fence of the airport, that would not have any real value for aeronautical use in the future without substantial infrastructure improvements. So we've basically identified 1, 2, 3, 4 areas, and we're maximizing the use of those areas. Did that answer your question?
Kind of, if I could follow up.
Go
So
ahead.
if there's 100 acres, how many acres are left over for aeronautical use then, potential aeronautical use?
Well, all the areas that directly abut taxiways or runways or have easy access to, we've left in place. I don't know the acreage off the top of my head, 50, 60, 70, maybe.
So we have room for some expansion.
There's room for expansion, yeah. If you go to our website and you go to the map that shows all the areas suitable for development, you can see the areas that we're looking at for solar, and you can see the areas that are left over. So we still have plenty of room for aeronautical use.
Maybe the next time we have a discussion, we can have the maps of this also.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Ms. Bramer?
Well, I think long-term planning-wise, Supervisor Wild, those solar panels aren't permanent fixtures. If we ever needed them, we could undo it somehow.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and written in any lease or agreement, it would be a clause that if at some point we needed them for aeronautical use, we would eventually get them back. The FAA is not going to let us encumber that land forever. They will not allow a lease more than 50 years, and on conversations with them we've had on the phone, they're going to be reluctant to give us a lease for more than 10 years on these. So That might be part of a problem that we might have with the solar developers, if that's short-term
Absolutely.
lease. But I think we can work around that, but, you know, these areas will be available to us if we ever need them in the future. We'll set it up that way.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving along, thank you, Mr. DeGraw. Moving along to number 5, review monthly FBO and hangar revenue.
So this time in 2018, we made $70,000, and apples-to-apples comparison of 2019, $128,000. So we're $58,000 ahead for the year. We're 100% occupied in our hangars.
And do we know when Mr. Skimmelhorn will have those new hangars available for leasing?
Yeah, so he currently has the 4 existing hangars. He just built the 2 brand-new hangars, and he's waiting to get a certificate of occupancy. So he needs electric in there, and then he also has to do a fire suppression system in one of the larger hangars. So he's just waiting for that.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, do we know if he's got jets willing to lease those 2?
He seems to have a lot of people interested, but until they can actually
Happens.
walk in there and they can turn on the lights, they're just not.
Sure.
They're just waiting. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a positive step, though. He's going through the CO process, and then he maybe has some people, jets, to move there or to lease. As we all know, the jet revenue is 40-something% minimum of the total revenue that we're getting out of the airport. So obviously, more jets equal more revenue. We're getting 21 cents per gallon. So that's a very significant positive step in increasing revenue out at the airport, and again, decreasing the losses. All real positive steps. Thank you. The next one is discussion regarding the airport operating certificate for air carrier operations, Part 139. Kevin?
So, I'll let Don get into it a little bit. We have what we call a Part 139 certificate at the airport. The Part 139 certificate is basically an operating certificate. It puts us at a higher operating level through the FAA. The reason we had this certificate, maybe at one time or another, and I'll let Don get into it, that we had kind of like maybe a possibility of air carrier service. We've come to the conclusion that we're really never going to have air carrier service here. And to eliminate the Part 139 certificate, we wouldn't make the airport any less safe. We just wouldn't be held to the highest standards that FAA has. And it would, in the long term, it would provide us some cost savings. Don and I don't have a number for that right yet. We're thinking it's going to be gradual over the next couple of years when we eliminate some of these items. But if you look on the back page, you'll kind of see basically the difference between with a certificate and without a certificate. And I'll let Don kind of go through them a little bit if there's any questions on them.
Okay, Mr. DeGraw?
Well, in short, we have an air carrier airport operating certificate that allows air carriers to use the airport. We don't have any air carriers using the airport. In my time here, even going back to 2008, no air carriers have requested to use the airport, not even on a limited basis. So we're being held to the standards of an air carrier airport, but we don't have a need to. So it's costing us money.
When was the last time we had an air carrier service at Warren County?
Read the Post-Star.
Yeah. I read that. That was a good article by, I think it was Don. It was 50 years ago that accident happened with Mohawk. So that probably was the last time we've had an air carrier service, I would surmise.
And Part 139 kicked in the late 80s, I think 85, 86, 87. That's when they started requiring the air carrier operating certificate at airports. So we've had it, we've maintained it, and I think the time has come to let it go, focus on reducing expenses and increasing revenue for general aviation. So
I think that's a smart path to take. I've always personally thought that that was not needed, and it was another avenue to to reduce our costs out at the airport. As you've stated, it will reduce costs gradually over the next few years. I like the chart that you have submitted with the key factors with a certificate and without a certificate and the risk factor. I know some people like to have charts and graphs, and that's great. And I think that suffices the inquisitive. Mr. Stroud, did you have a comment?
Yes, never say never. Especially with the changing world, look at the last 10 years.
So what I would do, I'm gonna continue to do all the day-to-day paperwork aspects of the 139. And if we ever needed to get it back, we could go back and apply and get our certificate back.
I mean,
So it's not a permanent, it's not like we lose it, we're never gonna be able to get it back. If we ever had a need to get it back, we could.
I still think the 1,000-foot extension of the runway would be a huge economic benefit to the area. And I wouldn't want a change in 139 status to change the future of that. Because, you know, nothing's dead.
Well, I know the 1,000-foot extension is basically dead, we know that, so the FAA said that it's not needed, so that is on fact, that is on record. Mr. Loeb, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as you pointed out, we have jets that are stationed now at the airport and hoping to get more, in your words. I look at the difference between having the 139 and not having the 139. I'm not sure whose words are here. But having the 139, the first word is ensures. The rest of the sentence ensures at the airport is operating at the highest level of safety, which would be, if I were stationing a jet here, they're not cheap. I would want my airport to have the highest level of safety. The alternative is, you got an okay airport. They're trying their best, and they basically meet the requirements for safety. You go right up to the top, air carrier service. Without a certificate, unable to accommodate large, unscheduled air carriers. Well, if we don't have a scheduled air carrier, at some point, we may have an unscheduled air carrier. They may not be able to land someplace. They may want to land here. We won't be able to accommodate them. I suppose they'll land here if there's no other place to land, better than a grassy field. If you go down to annual inspection, with a certificate, full safety inspection is conducted. Without a certificate, no annual inspection. Now, we'll say, well, we're going to keep up and do a good job, but no annual inspection is going to be required. Airport firefighting, with a certificate, requires full compliance with equipment and personnel requirements. And without the certificate, no ARFF requirements from the FAA. Also eliminates schedule requirements for testing the RFF and dry chemical agents. By the way, we spent a lot of money on that machine and the building to house them. So I say we've got a beautiful facility out there with the 139. We don't have to have scheduled aircraft coming in from United Air or anything like that. With the Northway, I expect we never will. But with the jets flying in there, I think we need to have a top-notch facility. And having the 139 indicates that we do have a top-notch facility. Without it, it's going to be a so-so facility.
Mr. DeGraw, does Saratoga County, which is a smaller runway, smaller airport, and 3 times as many flights, do they have the 139?
They do not.
They do not, okay. So let me just think that out for a second. Saratoga County, 3 times as many flights, shorter runway, and they don't feel the need to have a 139.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, you're the chairman, not a member of the committee. It's not inappropriate for you to get involved in this
I'm not chairman of the board, I'm chairman of the
Only
committee.
that, but I never got to finish mine before you cut me off. Easy.
I never cut you off, John.
Yeah, you did. I wasn't
When
done.
one stops talking, usually one can assume that they're done talking, but I guess I'll just keep it open for a half an hour, John. You let me know when you're done. Would that be better? Okay. Ms. Bramer.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I missed it, but can you tell us what is the cost of upkeeping the certificate status? If it's not really...
There's no numbers here.
It's cost benefit.
I know, and
Well,
I don't
it's
know.
hard to put an exact number on it because a lot of the cost lies in personnel. So So we currently have 2 full-time employees. Full-time employees are trained in inspections, they're trained in firefighting duties, they're trained in how to inspect fuel farms and so on and so forth. So I don't have any flexibility with those employees. I need those 2 guys. So in the future, if we were to alleviate if we were to let the certificate lapse, I have more flexibility with personnel. Maybe I wouldn't need 2 full-time employees. Maybe I could get away with 1.5 employees. Maybe I could reduce costs that way. If a person became sick for long term, I could replace them with anybody. I wouldn't need the person to be trained and up to speed and have the firefighting. Let's say one guy goes on vacation and another guy becomes sick. Now I have to send somebody out immediately to get them trained in ARP, and I have to bring them up to speed. So there are a lot of costs. It's really hard to quantify. We have to shoot Purple K every year to satisfy the requirements of the FAA. I have to do that twice a year. It's a dry chemical. It's very expensive. Instead of doing that twice a year, maybe I would do it every 2 years without the requirement. So there are a lot of costs that just kind of shrink or eventually go away. At some point, we wouldn't have a need for the fire truck anymore. Right now, we have a grant assurance that says, you know, you've accepted this fire truck and you have to let it run out its useful life, which is approximately 15 years. But after that, then we wouldn't have to have the fire truck, wouldn't have to maintain the fire truck. There's a cost associated with that. Luckily, the fire truck has given us very little trouble, but it's an expensive piece of equipment, and when things start going wrong on it, you can have costs that come up very quickly. If I had a problem tomorrow with the fire truck, it wouldn't be unheard of for me to have a $20,000 or $30,000 repair on that piece of equipment. So it's hard to quantify things that could happen in the future. But as we reduce our exposure to that risk, we reduce our exposure to spending more.
Mr. Hajos?
I just want to add on to that, and I don't want everybody to think that Don's saying we're gonna cut staff. That's not necessarily the case right now. The costs that are associated with this is that they go through trainings annually every year. They go out to Seneca Falls or Buffalo for the ARP training once a year, which is a cost associated with that for them to go out there. There's a cost for them to do the wildlife training that's done at the airport every year. So there's cost associated with that. That's really where the reduction will come into play here, is just that cost. I don't want to say that we're necessarily cutting staff. He's right. Eventually, maybe in the future, we might go down to maybe only needing 1.5 persons at the airport. But I want to emphasize on this. I know that it says that the summary ensures that the airport is operating with the highest level of safety. Don and I and his staff are still going to make sure that the airport operates at the highest level of safety. It's just not that we have to be inspected by FAA every year. So.
Mr. Garrity?
My only comment is, you know, I would think that we would want to maintain most of this for the safety of the people who use the airport now. We hear what a nice facility we have. We didn't need to extend the runway, but we have a lot of people, county residents, who use the airport. So I would say we should maintain people who can operate the fire truck. We should maintain the testing of whatever needs. We should maintain keeping the wildlife off the airfield. I'm not for not keeping the 139, just because the residents of Warren County are the majority users of the airport, and we need to make it safe or keep it safe for them. And you know, we continually hear how we have a jewel of an airport. If you start cutting back on certain things, are we going to put our residents a little more at risk? That's the only thing I'd say about it.
Mr. Moore?
I just have a question for Don. I don't pretend to be an expert on airports, but I know he is. The Cape Air, I think, I don't know if they still go out of Lake Placid, and I forget the name of the flight that flies out of Plattsburgh. Is that a designation that those airports have?
I'm sure they do, but 139 actually starts with 10 seats or more. Cape Air flies a 9-seat aircraft.
So that could be something that you wouldn't need, because it says large air carriers.
Right. So, I mean, I can get into the weeds with this with you all, but it would get a little complicated. So currently, there are 4 classes of certificates for 139. We have a class 4. It allows us to have large, which is 30 seats or greater, unscheduled air carriers to operate our airport. So what that means is, if, let's say, a charter, a 737 charter, wanted to fly into the airport, pick up passengers and fly somewhere and then come back, but it was a one-time deal. Our airport could accommodate that. And then 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after that operation, I'd have my firemen there, and we would do the inspections and make sure there was ARF capability at the airport. Rutland, for instance, has Cape Air flying back and forth to Boston. Cape Air is a 9-seater. Rutland has a 139 certificate. They actually just kind of toyed with getting rid of their 139 certificate because they don't need it, even though they have TSA there and they fly back and forth to Boston Logan every day with Cape Air. So they chose not to. They chose not to for the reasons that you had just discussed. They wanted to ensure that even though they didn't have 139 operations per se, they wanted to show the public that they were meeting 139 standards, which was a good thing for Rutland. I certainly would never propose to do anything here that I thought would ever impact the safety of the airport. My whole 26 years of doing this has always been focused on safety. So I would maintain the fire truck. I'd maintain to an appropriate level our qualifications. I do all the inspections. We do everything that we do now. We just wouldn't be held to the strict guidance that I'm held to now with the 139 certificate. So I would never do anything to impact safety. Now that being said, that's me right now. I'm not always going to be the manager here, you know. So in the future, if the standards that I'm upholding aren't upheld, could it reduce the level of safety at the airport? It's possible. With the 139 certificate, you know, because we're getting inspected every year, you know that we're doing what we're supposed to do. And you know when I'm here that we're going to do what we're supposed to do. But most airports, 80% of the airports in this country don't have 139 certificates. There's only about 450 that have them. The rest of them don't. So.
Mr. Simpson?
How does this affect the current people that are at the airport that house their planes there and operate out of there? Is there effect on their...
It'll be invisible to them.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be invisible. And I talked to the FBO, they don't have an issue with it yet. It just gives me more flexibility in how I manage the airport.
Mr. Weil?
I see this as a concept. This isn't a cost-benefit analysis because there's no numbers. And for me to be able to support this, I would need to see the numbers and then try to weigh whether or not the value that this provides is offset by the cost of, you know, where are we going with this? So you say it's hard to quantify, but it sounds like we get grants for a number of the FAA 139 eligible items, like the fire equipment.
Yeah, we won't get grants for fire equipment anymore because it's not a requirement to have a fire truck on the airport. That's the only, that's the primary grant that we will get in the future, fire truck.
I see value in the fire truck.
So all the other grants we will get?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, infrastructure grants, snow removal grants we get, but the fire truck isn't a requirement.
Okay. This was just for a discussion. Mr. McGowan, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, you know, with the, obviously, we didn't see this coming when we were negotiating with our FBO, but, you know, my feelings is, with the increasing amount of jets that the FBO is bringing in, and the safety of the fire truck, and along with the smaller planes, I feel is really an importance to have it in quickness. Is it something maybe that we can negotiate with the FBO of getting one of their persons trained for the fire truck, since it seems like they always have someone there on hand too, I think it would benefit, both sides, and it might be something, beneficial.
Well, we currently, you know, there's 3 county employees at the airport, including myself, all able to use that truck. 2 of them, I don't go annually for the 139 qualification, but 2 of them go there for that.
Can I add in though?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Ajos.
Steve Abbott went last year to the ARP training, so one of the employees of the FBO was trained.
Yes, Steve was trained, but, you know, the truck we have is a large, complicated piece of equipment. The 3 of us, county employees, are on that truck all the time, staying current with it, being familiar with it. I would not recommend letting non-county employees use that truck, particularly in emergency situations.
Ms. Bramer?
Thank you. I just, I'm not sure, I don't know what to do, I like the flexibility that we have, that you want to see. I also appreciate Supervisor Strauss' comment that we might have, expanded operations in the future. I'm wondering if we could get some, input from the Airport Advisory Council. I know they don't really meet anymore, committee, whatever, and we have someone here, but maybe just run it by them and see if they have any concerns and bring that back to a committee so we can, I mean, I'm not an airport expert, so. I know you are, Don, I just wanna know what our community, like, you know, our residents are using this thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can certainly do that. I've never met with him. I'm not sure if he's on it.
They're out there.
The advisory committee? I didn't even know that was still intact, but okay. When's the last time they met?
It's been a long time, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably a year. Yes, Mr. Hajos?
Ask the gentleman to your right-hand side.
Last year.
Been over a year, okay.
Yeah, I think it was December.
Yeah, about a year ago, okay.
It doesn't mean you can't send out an email and say to those people, what do you think of this?
Yeah,
I've got no problem with that, Mr. Terrell, if you'd like to reach out to the advisory committee. Could, Mr. Sokol,
Well,
could you?
we kinda did away with it.
Well, oh, that's what I thought. I thought it was disbanded, but,
Yeah.
so, it's hard to send something out that's not there.
Yeah.
Maybe, if you're recommending, Ms. Bramer, that we start up a new advisory committee, and you'd like to be the head of that, I'd support that 1,000%.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay,
Sure.
all right, so, why don't you get back to us on who'd you like to be on that committee, and we'll go from there, all right?
Do you wanna
Mis-
hear that first, or just have me put it together?
I'd like to have you put together and then come back to the committee with who'd you like to have on there. Yes, Mr. McGowan?
Yes, thank you. We must be in a rush today, because you're not letting anybody finish, but,
Well, we have a.
Okay, okay. Now, my question was on the, Uber airplanes. This is becoming a bigger thing of people with, the jets and that, I guess, you can rent and coming out, and who knows how large it would be. This thing covers up to a 30 passenger, I mean.
So the current certificate that we've had for many, many years now, it's a Class 4 certificate. It allows large, which is 30 seats or greater, 31 seats or more actually, aircraft, which are operating under an air carrier certificate to operate at our airport. So that means when you go online, the public, and buy a ticket, like you're going to Albany and you buy a ticket on Delta Airlines, you're gonna get the same level of safety at Albany as you would get at Glens Falls if that air carrier were to come in. So if there was a special charter that, let's say the local bank said, we're gonna go to Cancun, and we're gonna fly out of Glens Falls, and you can buy a ticket on that plane. So you buy a ticket on that plane with your family, and that plane comes and lands at Glens Falls. You know that when you bought that ticket, public ticket, that you're getting the same level of safety that at Glens Falls that you're getting at Albany. But if you charter a plane, if you just charter it privately, that's not a 139 operation because it wasn't available to the public.
All right, thank you.
Okay, does that make sense?
Now, are you done, Mr. McGowan? Can we move on? Oh, okay, thank you. Mr. Hajos?
Supervisor Wild, there was a dollar figure on here, and I actually asked Don to take it off, because I didn't want it to be out there. It was, again, he said it was hard to quantify, it was an approximate. I'll give you a number, it was about approximately $10,000, say, in the first year savings. And a lot of that dealt with more or less the training that was needed and the training that we send them out to. So that was about the dollar figure, but I asked him not to put it on there because again, it's hard to quantify that number. I wanted to be sure before we kind of fed the number to everybody else.
And I still wanna maintain the standards that we have in place, so, I would still send people out to ARP training, and I would still do a lot of the things that we would normally do for 139, but I could just do it, instead of doing it at the timeline and schedule that the FAA required me to do it, I could do it at my own timeline, to maximize the benefits of the county.
Mr. Stroud?
Yeah, well, to finish up my previous thought, if we had done an economic study to study the runway extension, and the economic study said that extending the runway could have substantial positive economic impact on the region, then we would certainly want to reapply for the runway extension. So I'm not discounting that. I think it's still possible. But also, Don, as I read through, with the certificate benefits, that you say that we're going to carry on anyways, and the training, which we're going to do anyways, I don't see the advantages of degrading the airport status other than less paperwork. But it seems to me the argument still remains very strong to keep a 139 status.
I'm gonna wrap this up, seeing that we have, the major portion of our meeting, and we only have 24 minutes now, left of that. So, we'll conclude that, we'll have further discussion on this at the next month's meeting. And, I look forward to Ms. Bramer's list of a new advisory committee, she'll bring to the next meeting. I look forward to that, as we all do. And, we will now go to the, Department of Public Works Buildings and Grounds, and everybody pull your agenda out for that, please. First thing will be number 2, Mr. Hajos.
So before I start this portion of the committee, I just want to say that resolution request number 11 and 12 are actually going to go to DPW. Julie had informed me this morning that they should be in DPW and not on here. So they're going to be moved to DPW. So to start with the first one, basically an extension of contracts for solid waste, medical waste, and recycling disposal services. And you'll see the attachments show that each one of the individuals who is on contract with us has extended for another year with the county.
Who wants to move that? Mr. Loeb, second. Ms. Bramer, discussion?
With the recycling disposal services, do you have any idea what's actually happening with those materials being taken by county waste and waste management?
I'm going to say they're being recycled.
Mr. Garrity?
This is just for the business here at Warren County, right? This is not for the total Warren?
This is for Warren County, correct?
Just for the buildings here?
On the sheet, the sheriff's
Yes,
office,
it's for the municipal
countryside,
center, sheriff's office, countryside, adult home.
Okay.
the airport,
Thank you.
Bolton
The airport.
Any other discussion? Ms. Bramer?
Yeah, thanks. Just looking here, doesn't look like we have recycling servicing the municipal center.
Yeah, it says municipal center, sheriff's office, and countryside, adult home.
That's for medical waste.
Solid waste management is for solid waste. You tell me, Frank, because you know these better than I do. These two for us as well. They just weren't added in for, that's a medical waste.
Oh, in the back. As far as I know, we actually take our recycling from here to the Lake George landfill. Our like.
The transfer station?
Yeah. But I know we have contract for newspaper, plastic, and.
With Perkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cardboard, and so all the other stuff we take ourselves.
Paper, cardboard, and plastic.
Yes.
from here? Okay.
Further discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 13?
The next item on the agenda is to establish a capital project, H397, for the OES garage. This is for the new OES facility.
Moved by Mr. Sokol, second by Mr. Loeb. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 14?
Actually, I think we skipped one.
What did we skip?
To increase A71.
That's what I.
That's number 13 on my list.
So I just did the OES garage. My apologies.
Okay, we jumped to OES, okay. So, just for clarification, we approved OES, which is number 16 on your list. It's obviously a different number on Mr. Ajos's list, but we did approve that, correct?
Fourteen. Right.
We don't have no.
We just
Oh,
skipped
okay,
over.
excuse me, 14, okay. So we're all set, Amanda? Okay, we're all set on 14. So we have to go back to 13 now, okay.
So 13 is a request to increase A871 reserve for rehab county buildings. As you all know, last month we brought, I think it was the previous month, committee had approved the $118,000 for the new generator for the HSV building. And then we've taken the old generator out of there and given it to Countryside. Countryside's gonna have a similar, request in theirs. There's a little bit of lead time on these generators, so I wanna move the money to the reserve account so we don't lose that money, cause right now it's just in a budget code. So this would put it in the reserve so we have it, and after probably the first of the year, somewhere January, February, we'll start doing the new generator.
Mr. Loeb would like to move that, second by Ms. Frazier. Discussion? Mr. Loeb?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of accuracy. When I was hearing the resolution being read for us to vote on, and I made the motion to approve it, it was for this, for the municipal center, number 13. Now, regardless of the number, it was for the generator and human resources. So, not the OES.
Okay, you should
We
vote on
haven't
both.
voted on OES yet.
Would you,
So,
we voted on that according to Amanda.
Establish capital project H397, which is item 14 on your agenda. You already voted on it and approved it.
But he's saying he made the motion and that's not what it was. Oh.
On that number 14, I was.
well, that's fine. If it was actually OES, I was gonna vote yes on both of them. I just wanna make sure that we're on
Okay.
record that we're approving both of them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Loeb. Any other discussion on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, the next one is the, amend budget for funding of capital project for OES DPW facility. And this money is being, I'm sure I have the right page. This is to fund, the OES building with, $450,000, and this money would be coming from, which is the next resolution in your package, from the sale of the land to Perkins Recycling and the transfer of proceeds to the capital project of H397. So these two resolutions go together.
Mr. Loeb, would you like to move that?
I will.
Second. Seeking a second. Ms. Bramer, second. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And the last item on the agenda is the request for a new contract for the OES facility. We were to receive bids last Tuesday. We had quite a few questions from the contractors on the bids, so we extended the bid, last Thursday, so we extended the bid for 1 week. All the questions were addressed as of last Thursday evening, so we would have the bids come in this Thursday, and this is to award the lowest responsive bidder.
You're asking for that today?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Garrity will move it. A second. Mr. Simpson, discussion?
Sorry, what are we voting on?
Number 16?
Lowest responsible bidder.
responsible bidder
for the
No.
To approve for the lowest responsive bidder for the OES building.
No, we don't have the bids back yet?
We'll have the bids back Thursday. It's to be determined, would be the lowest responsive bidder.
Ms. Bramer, are you done, Mr. Weil?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Ms. Bramer? You're welcome.
I don't know. I mean, not that I'm any kind of construction spec expert either, but I guess I'd like to see the bids first.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Mr. Hajos?
Yeah, and that's fine. We've done these before. This one's a little bit different because it's probably a lot more money. We have done contracts before where we do it to be determined for the lowest
I know,
responsive
yeah.
bidder. This is, I don't know what the bids are gonna come in at. As I said a while back, I'm assuming, $450,000 for this building. I think we've had 4 or 5 bidders on the plan bid list. I'm hoping to get a good cost. We're not gonna have them do a lot of construction during the winter, which is probably gonna keep the cost down. And we gave them basically a bare bones building. But again, we can wait and see when the bids come in. I don't have to bring it today.
Mr. Diamond?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would request that we table any action on this particular resolution because I'd like to also see what those bids are too.
Okay, do I have a second on Mr. Diamond's request to table? A second by Ms. Bramer. All in favor of tabling this motion? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is tabled.
The next item is under referral and pending items.
I had a question on that item.
The motion's already been tabled, so I don't know if we can go back.
I just wanted to make the point that, we won't have a committee meeting until basically for action at a February board meeting.
That's my point.
Yeah,
My
that's-
point that I wanted
Yeah.
to make, there's a timetable to these.
Yeah.
If you're gonna award the bid, and you're going to go with the lowest responsible bidder, that would probably have to be on December's Board of Supervisors meeting. So if we were to hold this up till the next month, it really kicks it down the road, and would that be a problem? Because people looking to start spring work are looking to start spring work and setting that up now, not in January. They've already set everything up in January.
Mr. Hajos?
If, we're still accepting the bids on Thursday, so a contractor, if he knows that he's the lowest responsive bidder, and we kind of check it out, and I mean, I normally give the letter, which doesn't typically come through committee. I'm normally the one that just submits the letter and said that you were awarded the lowest responsive bidder.
It's less than.
Here, I bring it for just the contract.
Okay.
So if I have a low bidder and it's under, I guess, $450,000, then I would award it to them, and they would be prepared for it.
Well, in the town world, and the county world may be different. In the town world, you can't say anything to that bidder until the town boards let you say something to that bidder. We have to approve the bid. So I don't know if the county's the same way. Does the county have to approve the bid before you can say anything to the prospective awardee?
We can communicate with the bidders, but we can't make it official until the county approves it.
That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Wild?
I'm sorry, but could we maybe modify this resolution to say if it doesn't exceed 450,000, or have another meeting?
How about
I
we
would
have a
prefer we
motion?
don't do that.
That's a very good, suggestion. How about if we have a motion that we discuss this, not table it at the moment, so we can have further discussion? Is that appropriate, Amanda?
Yeah.
That we can, so, do we need a motion to take something off the table and then,
You're bringing it up.
Why don't you just schedule another meeting?
okay. Do I have a motion to, have further discussion on this? Mr. Diamond, second by
I will
Ms. Bramer?
second that.
Okay, so it's back open now, we can have further discussion.
How about, we have
We
two
didn't
options,
vote.
right? So one is not to exceed 450, or we have another meeting, right?
I'd like to make a suggestion that we refer this to finance, okay, after we get the bids in next week, and, they can take it up from that perspective.
What you could do is just have a meeting before personnel and finance.
We could do that too, we could do anything. So what would the committee like to do? We can refer it to finance, we can have a meeting beforehand, I mean, we got a lot of options.
Meeting beforehand first.
I agree.
Mr. Dunn would like a meeting beforehand. Let's take a vote. Who would like a meeting beforehand? By show of hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay, that's carried then. We'll have a meeting beforehand, once the bids are in.
Yeah, we have to allow the clerk to adjust the schedule. So can we move everything back, or you wanna do 8:45?
Well, personnel and finance, personnel will start at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, yeah.
So we can do it at 9 or 9:30, depending on how much time.
9:30.
9:30?
Okay, so that's doable. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do then. Sounds good. Anything else, Mr. Ajos?
You don't have to come.
That's it? No,
The referral is basically for the ODS building, which we're gonna discuss.
okay, privilege of the floor. Ms. Bramer, privilege of the floor.
Yeah, thanks. I love it.
Well, you're talking, so I figured you wanted to say something.
Are we at that stage actually, because I did want to mention that, Supervisor McDivitt brought up about doing the benchmarking and an energy audit for this particular building, and we will be talking about that tomorrow at the environmental control meeting. Chris Belden is helping us work on just getting that ironed out and putting in the data, and I think that's gonna be a good tool, hopefully, Frank.
Yeah, I think they're gonna start for lighting and windows.
I've
That's what we're looking at.
spoken to Chris, and I think it's gonna be a repeat of what we've had done,
Oh, okay.
but the windows weren't really addressed the first time around, so it might be a good. And I'm sure technology has changed a lot for upgrading the windows. I think it'll be beneficial.
Mr. Wild?
Yes, I just have a question, Frank and Kevin, about the South End building that we're selling. I've gotten a number of calls from the prospective purchaser about cleanup of the facility. And he's kind of concerned about the progress and the lack of time that's available. So we're supposedly closing December 2nd, which is Monday. So we're a couple of weeks out from there, but there's a spot where he was tearing things apart, and where the last oil spill was that he had there, as well as other things around the facility that Mr. Perkins is hoping gets cleaned up, and hopefully we don't have more trouble with trying to have this thing close. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are, what kind of conversations you've had with him, and what kind of assurances you have that this whole place is going to be cleaned up.
Mr. Hajos?
We've been down there meeting with Gary Fingers from D&G to make sure that he does clean the area up, and Frank's guys are down there. They'll be down there for the next couple of weeks, making sure that things are happening.
So what's our recourse if he's...
I don't know our recourse, but I spoke to him last Thursday, and he assured me he was gonna clean up outside. I have people going down there this morning. I just asked him to look around and
Okay.
see if he's done anything over the weekend.
Let me just one follow-up, Mr.
One
Chairman.
follow-up?
if you
Go
don't
ahead,
mind.
Mr. Wild.
For Mary. Mary, what do we have in the contract that we might be able to have some leverage against this person if this decides to not clean it up?
I don't know, I'd have to look at it again, I haven't looked at it in so long.
I
Mr.
think we may
McDivitt?
want to prepare.
Thank you, Mr. Wild. Mr.
I
McDivitt?
thought I heard somewhere along the line that it was an as-is condition,
It was, as part of the original contract.
Which was as is, I'm sorry.
Mr. Wild?
Purchase? The purchase was as is?
The lease to D&G was as is. I
So
don't.
is the purchase.
So is the purchase. So is the purchase.
The purchase.
Right, but part of the lease was that he's supposed to maintain this property and bring it back at the close, to bring it back to the condition it was when he started. If I'm not mistaken, I've read that contract, it's been a while since I've looked at it. But in my perception is that it's his responsibility to clean this place up, to get it to the point where it was when he first took possession. So let's just kind of keep an eye on it though, because I just don't want any more problems with it. or
what does the contract say?
Mr. McDivitt?
Did the contract say as is, or it's?
Yeah, again, I had pointed this out over and over again, I think in this committee, all along with Gary Finger, D&G, and what the condition of the site was, is I don't know, I don't think Frank probably knows, maybe he does, what the condition of the site was when Gary took over, down there, because I have no record anywhere from anyone that says this is the condition that site was in. I don't have what the building shape was in, none of that. And there was no, as I referenced before, it's like renting a car. When you rent a car, you go around the car with the rental agent and say there's a scratch ding. None of that was done down there. So I can't say what condition it was in beforehand. But Frank and I will be on Mr. Finger and to make sure that we feel it's up to where it should be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Okay, any other questions? Privilege of the floor? None? Okay, a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion by Mr. Sokol, second by Mr. Loeb. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned.